warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you're here, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video so that more people get to know about Bharata First. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Let me also inform you that we have some massive discounts at the Knowledge Center, and we will be closing registrations for the existing packages soon. This is your last chance to get these offerings. I will be taking live big picture current affairs analysis classes soon, so don't miss out. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com and register right now. Hundreds are reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. Well, let's get on with the discussion now. The infrastructure sector has emerged as a high policy priority, and the launch of the Gati Shakti initiative by Prime Minister Narendra Modi this week adds a new dimension of implementation to the endeavor. This is a significant step forward for the country's logistics, where inefficiencies result in an estimated cost burden of 13 to 14% of gross domestic product, compared to 6 to 8% in more competitive economies. The Gati Shakti National Master Plan is expected to deploy a geospatial digital platform that will provide real-time information on infrastructure projects across 16 ministries. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the Gati Shakti Master Plan. Joining me on the program today are R. Gopalan, former Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and Ajay Shankar, former Secretary, DIPP, Government of India. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Mr. Shankar, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand and analyze this master plan that that the Prime Minister has announced as far as infrastructure is concerned. It's not new. He mentioned it. There was mention of it in the budget as well. How would you look at this infrastructure master plan?
The infrastructure master plan is ambitious, highly ambitious, and in some ways it is overdue, because if we look at what the Prime Minister said, he said that the cost of logistics in India is a little over 13%, and our competitors, it's about half of that. Now, if you are a firm wanting to compete within the domestic market or the global market, the headroom you have or the leeway you have of reducing your costs of production is limited, of modest, or very difficult in the globalized economy that we are in. So straight away, anybody doing economic activity in India has this cost disadvantage of 6-7%, and something which can be easily reduced. But the individual firm or entrepreneur cannot do it. It's only government which can do it. So I think if government has now seen the importance of bringing this 13% down to 6-7%, comparable to those of our competitors, I think it's an overdue initiative, and I do hope that it succeeds in a few years in really doing away with this competitive disadvantage that India has.
Absolutely. Mr. Gopalan, let me bring you to the picture now. So how ambitious is this project, first and foremost, and what do we need to do to ensure that it all falls in place and goes according to plan?
Well, this is a very, very tough job. Looking at the kind of investment we are looking at, 111 lakh crores over a 5-year period, and of which there is a significant component from state governments and also from private sector, about 40 or 39, and about 22 in that particular ratio. The biggest thing will be how to find funds to ensure that such projects are implemented. Second will be, what are the executing capabilities of the various agencies of the government, how that is going to be beefed up. 3, what are the various processes and procedures and legal and other law of the land and other things, where there is always an ability to claw back or hold back the faster movement or the implementation of such projects. And lastly, how the external scenario is going to be there to enable us to continuously do this without much of a hiccup, which I can develop little later. So these are some issues which are going to be very crucial in determining the success of this program. Personally, I would like this program to succeed, because after the kind of seeing the kind of gaps in the infrastructure which afflicts our investors and other economic agents, I think this is a very good plan, and I really want it to succeed as we go along.
Absolutely. Mr. Shankar, coming back to you now, talking about this plan itself and infrastructure as a whole, its infrastructure is a massive sector as far as economic growth is concerned. Somehow, though, we've been lagging behind with regards to infrastructure. With this plan in place, with the kind of reactions that we've seen from India Inc., do you see things succeeding the way they should?
Achieving success on something as ambitious as this would be challenging. It would be a bit simplistic to assume that there would be no challenges or difficulties in achieving something like this. So let me list what I think are going to be the key challenges. The foremost, I think, would be the availability of funds, as Mr. Gopalan has rightly pointed out. Now, the private sector will invest where it sees returns on investment and a business case for investment. Now, that business case can be made by doing things on the regulatory side, on the pricing side, on the market side, where the private sector sees a return on investment which is attractive enough. And government in the past has also used the instrument of viability gap funding and other devices to make it worthwhile for the private sector to invest. The difficulty is that our success so far has been modest. And given the setbacks which many investors have had in infrastructure, NPA problems and things like that, I think there is now a greater wariness in the private sector to rush into infrastructure investment unless the business case appears stronger or risk mitigation appears stronger. So that is one challenge. As far as the government is concerned, it is already facing some difficulty on the fiscal side. So government would need to take a deep breath and shift from the thinking which is well entrenched within the system, which is that a higher fiscal deficit, if used for capital expenditure, is something we can live with, provided the extra fiscal deficit that we bring in is used only for capital investment. Because the one of the less well recognized structural changes of India has been that when we were far poorer, we were spending a greater share of tax revenues into capital investment. Now that we are far more prosperous, the share of capital investment from government has been declining. So if government were to, take a deep breath and take a clean picture that we will increase the fiscal deficit, sustain it to levels which don't bring in inflation, give up this 3-4% number which is considered sacred, and invest heavily in infrastructure. The Chinese have done it and succeeding very well. The other is that government has finally created this development financial institution, and the intention is that it will fund infrastructure. But that it should be able to fund infrastructure with long-term debt at reasonable rates of interest is a challenge which the new institution has to meet. So to the extent that succeeds, we can again hope for great success. So at this round, I will stop at this financing issue, because till we get the finances flowing, project execution cannot really pick up at the speed and the pace at which it is needed.
Absolutely, and we're talking about large financing to the tune of 100 crore rupees. So, like Mr. Gopalan raised that particular issue as well. 100 crores, 100 crores. Yes,
100 lakh crores.
100 lakh crores. Yes, yes. Sorry.
Peanuts.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Shankar, for that. So, Mr. Gopalan, yes, let's take this issue of financing also forward. Where is the financing going to come from? You mentioned that in your opening remark as well. And also another aspect that I'd like to bring in is because this master plan looks at bringing several, projects or flagship projects that are already in place under different ministries like Bharatmala, Sagarmala, then there's Udan, there's expansion of the railway network, inland waterways, and BharatNet as well. So what is the level of coordination that exists between ministries right now, and what is the level of coordination that is going to be required to make this work?
Well, coordination is going to be extremely crucial, just as you have mentioned. Look, I mean, it is not that, there were not enough coordination in the past in implementing projects. But the way it is now being looked at, putting it on a spatial pattern, so every project finds place in the spatial map, knowing exactly or roughly when they are about to be commissioned or started, and what are the missing gaps in these projects and how to fund those missing gaps. This is an exercise which is a very, very large scale kind of an exercise and requires tremendous amount of understanding of how various components of those projects can get implemented, given the various constraints which Shankar pointed out and I have also pointed out. So it requires a tremendous amount of thinking, hard work before we are able to arrive at what is possible for us to do. Now, the other things is that there are a tremendous amount of difficulties, as Mr. Shankar has alluded to. For instance, in administration, every ministry has its own budget, has its own set of projects. Now, all projects under this plan will be put on the budget. Obviously, money has to be found out, as Mr. Shankar said. It's not that money will be found out in year one. So you'll have to plan out which of these projects are going to come in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for those projects, for each one of those years, what is the amount that is required for each of the ministries? And that money is not alone from the central ministry, it's also from state government budgets as well as from private sector. So how that is going to be dovetailed or how that is going to be coordinated. Now, after having coordinated all those, how are we going to ensure that all the clearances are, obtained in time? We don't have courts interfering in a big way. How are we going to ensure that CAG, CVC, CBI things are not going to come in the way of all this? These are extremely gargantuan tasks, given the kind of record which we have had. As I mentioned, the planning, announcing this kind of a architecture will certainly be a big job, but implementing it is going to be even a bigger job. Now, if we are able to show the same kind of purpose with which we have started looking into this, if you are able to transform that into the implementation aspect as well, we can still find a chance of completing some of them, may not be all, but even then, if we complete half of them or 3/4 of them, it's a great, boost or a boon for the private sector investment taking place in the country. I think that, it's not an easy job. It requires tremendous amount of imagination, tremendous amount of understanding and appreciation of other, people who are operating in this, area, and also a lot of patience to see that you are able to ensure that you are consistently at this job with great amount of perseverance. It's not an easy job, but I am excited. If it succeeds, I think it will be great for the country.
Absolutely. Let's also talk about the role of the states, Mr. Shankar, and how that is going to be important as well, and also the role of the private sector, because this is basically a master plan. We have done this at several levels with different projects that we've done, but this is taking it up a notch and taking it to another level altogether. And we've seen in the past that there have been issues really with regards to such projects and states. If the government is different at the center and at the state, then there are bound to be some problems that crop up. So all these issues need to be trashed out as well.
You're absolutely right, and I'm glad that there is emphasis on the vital importance of coordination. Because the fact of the matter is that ministries run their programs, they get their budgets, they have their investment agencies, in their investing agencies or executing agencies, and the track record is by and large fair. It keeps getting better day by day. And of course, in some ministries or some sectors, you've seen more dramatic progress. Others have been a little slow in picking up. But the coordination problem in India is acute. And it has many dimensions. So I will list a few of them. One is that there is something, a critical gap in infrastructure, which doesn't come in the purview of any ministry. And it remains unattended because there is no system for quickly identifying the gap and providing funds for it. So to give a concrete example, when I used to be Secretary Hyundai, representatives would meet me and they say that the trucks from that plant near Chennai would take about 2 hours to just cross 2-3 kilometers before they could move to the airport for exports. So all the advantage they have of being next to a port was lost. And they met me for 2-3 years, nothing happened because this project of building a flyover over this stretch of road had to be done by the state government. The state government, it was not priority. There was no easy money for it, etc., etc. I hope it's been done now. I don't know if it has been done or not. So you need some dedicated, unallocated money to be given to whichever agency has to do the little building block. On a macro level, we are a major auto producing industry, but hardly any of the auto plants have the spurs which take them to the railway network. While carrying produced cars or trucks on rail is cheaper, and that's how it's done in the whole world. But again, because in the railway system, the spur is not part of their way of executing railway. The high-speed corridor itself doesn't have provisions for spurs. So unless there is some provision for spur, some way of identifying it and executing it quickly, the gap remains. And if you go back to, in history, 100 years back, when we had a globally competitive textile industry, railway sidings went into every textile factory in Mumbai. So that's one kind of problem. The other kind of problem is what is always talked about is getting all the clearances in position. Now, I believe it's time the government took a firm decision that no contract will be awarded till land acquisition is complete. Because we start projects assuming that land acquisition will be completed or there is some court litigation and the stay will get vacated. Doesn't happen. So better take a hard decision till land acquisition is complete, we'll not start. And we'll put all the strength of government in getting that acquisition completed. The next is clearances. And here coordination between the center and the state is very important. And I have seen it, and I believe it's still true, that barring 1 or 2 projects which for some reason become politically sensitive, it is in the interest of both the central government as well as the state government that they work together and get these projects done. And in reality, they do it all the time. So if you look at all the projects that are going on in the country, barring 1 or 2 ones where there is some political sensitivity, which is also understandable. There was this Vedanta project where the tribals felt the land was sacred. There was some problem there. Or they have another project somewhere else where, for whatever reasons, things went wrong. Police had to fire and kill a few people. So you exclude those, projects move pretty smoothly and the center and states work well together. But that needs greater streamlining, and this is the second level of coordination. The third one is a little more challenging, or in terms of government processes, which is that if something gets stuck somewhere for some reason, it's bound to happen, then do we have a quick enough mechanism which will get the right kind of interventions to untangle the knot? And their decision-making abilities within the government at functional levels, not at the highest levels, need to improve dramatically.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very, very well put into perspective for us, Mr. Shankar. Looking at all these issues of coordination, bringing in some of those personal examples as well, so that we can understand it better. Mr. Gopalan, close the show for us with your concluding remarks on the best way forward, what needs to be done, and also who's likely to benefit the most out of this master plan.
If you say that who is going to benefit out of the master plan, I think the entire set of economic agents in the country will certainly be benefited by this. Whether it is the private sector investment or the state level investment or the government of India centers investments, all these investments will now, in a sense, will get the kind of recognition in the various authorities who will have to look into, if you lay out a master plan like this, what are the gaps that are going to arise? Like Mr. Shankar mentioned about a railway siding kind of a problem. So these are some of the gaps which will have to arise. And that kind of a funding has to be done by the government of India, because I don't think that kind of a funding will be either by the government of India or by the state government, mostly by government of India, because of the large resources they have. I think they should be in a position to get that kind of an issue resolved as quickly as possible. Now, there will be definitely pressure on administration to deliver in time, and that is going to be very interesting to watch. Earlier there could be excuses in not delivering because of various reasons. Now there is very little ability to offer or trot out an excuse. Rather, when you are able to find out a problem, you escalate it to such high levels that those problems in completing the projects are understood and immediately attended to without any wastage of time. Otherwise, this entire matrix of the projects will not be up for offering the kind of economic benefit it can offer. Now, that is one on which I would say that if using the spatial functions of monitoring the projects and trying to find out where each one should be, what will that bring into this thing is that, and if it is made known to the public, there will be a lot of recognition that some serious activity is going on. And as a result, the private investment will be emboldened to put forth their money in doing an investment there, because something is happening as promised to happen. It was supposed to complete in 2 years. Last year, it has done so much. So I'm confident that this is going to get completed. Now let me put my investment on ground to take it forward. So instead of waiting for a longer time to get to know whether investments can be put in, now there will be some advanced decision making by the private industry in ensuring that investments are put in place. Now, lastly, I also would like to see, we normally, what we do is we build certain things, we forget about them. First, the maintenance is very important of them, because if they are not maintained appropriately, then the benefit of that particular investment is not going to be available in full measure. So if this project is able to ensure that even after implementation, the monitoring of the quality with which this infrastructure is going to deliver, if that is going to be monitored and course correction taken to correct that, I'm sure there will certainly be a very good benefit to the economy.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that the Gati Shakti Master Plan is an ambitious initiative. Considering the massive leakages in logistics, this has been long overdue. The initiative will have wide-ranging impact on the economy, and the cost of production will come down drastically. As ambitious as the project is, it has to be backed up with fine coordination for it to work. Implementation is going to be key. The legal framework will first have to be worked out. Plans will have to be well executed and a clear roadmap defined. What we also need is greater streamlining. Well, before I go, let me once again remind you to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well, so that more people get to know about us. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive information. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Let me also inform you that we have some massive discounts at the Knowledge Center, and we will be closing registrations for the existing packages soon. This is your last chance to get these offerings. I will be taking live big picture current affairs analysis classes soon, so don't miss out. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com and register right now. Hundreds are reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.